A surprising pattern behind color names around the world.
If I showed you this paint chip and asked you to tell me what color it is, what would you...
What would I say? Obviously I would say some kind of like blue and green mixture, but with more blue than green.
say? How about this one? And this one?
Wait.
You probably said blue, purple, and brown.
Yeah. Now that I have the direct I'm with you, yes.
But if your native language is Wobe from Côte d'Ivoire, you probably would have used one word for all three.
Why?
That's because not all languages have the same number of
I would say slate blue. What is slate blue?
basic color categories. In English, we have 11. Russian has 12, but
Wait, what? Wait, what's the new one in Russian? The added one. This one. No. Голубой? Oh my god! Oh my god! I just now realized it's not like hex codes. It's just the transliterated Russian. That is disgusting. Just write the Russian word. What the fuck? Okay, we have yellow and жёлтый. This is жёлтый. This is the transliteration. It's disgusting. Green, зелёный. How would you say that in English? How would you pronounce this if you... How... I think this is actually the best example. How would you pronounce this if you saw this? This is disgusting. It... Not everyone on the internet can read Cyrillic. Nobody! I'm telling you, not a single person reading any of these will pronounce them in a way that any Russian would understand. Except maybe this one, синий. But yeah, so we got green, зелёный, we got blue, синий, but the added one is голубой, which is light blue. And I didn't know it was a, what was it called, basic color?
number of basic color categories.
Basic color
In
category.
English, we have 11.
I mean,
Russian
I guess
has
that makes
12.
sense, because, like, in German you also say light blue. So I always just thought, yeah, голубой is light blue, but it just has its own word for it. But yeah, actually thinking about it, you can say светло-голубой, like light blue. Темно-голубой, dark light blue, I guess. So yeah, that actually makes sense. Yeah, light blue has its own basic color category, and I never even thought about it like that. Brown is dark orange after all. True, actually, yeah, you're right. But the thing is, would people call brown dark orange if they didn't know it is that? I wouldn't. But with голубой, I always associated it with light blue, but maybe it's just my upbringing, I don't know. Maybe it's just like this special case of, you know, knowing Russian and German. But yeah, then we also have, of course, purple. Purpurный. Would people say that? Because if anything, I heard people say сиреневый or фиолетовый, but not пурпурный. But sure. Pink, розовый, red, красный, orange, оранжевый, brown, коричневый, black, черный, which kind of looks like cherry on a first glance, gray, серый, and white, белый. Yes. But it's interesting that there are only 12, right? Yes, 12 in English. Or 11? 11. That there are only 11 in English. That's also nothing I ever thought about. That you only have 11 words to describe different colors in English, and everything else is just like different shades.
But some languages like Wobe only have 3. And researchers have found that if a language only has 3 or 4 basic colors, they can usually predict what those will be.
Dark, light, and red. I mean, that makes sense, I guess, but for example, with this, how do you describe blue?
So how do they do it? As you would expect, different languages have different words for colors. But what interests researchers isn't those simple translations, it's the question of which colors get names at all. Because as much as we think of colors in categories, the truth is that color is a spectrum. It's not obvious why we should have a basic color term for this color, but not this one. And until the 1960s, it was widely believed by anthropologists that cultures would just choose from the spectrum randomly. But in 1969, two Berkeley researchers, Paul Kay and Brett Berlin, published a book challenging that assumption. They had asked 20 people who spoke different languages to look at these 330 color chips and categorize each of them by their basic color term. And they found hints of a universal pattern. If a language had 6 basic color words, they were always for black or dark, white or light, red, green, yellow, and blue. If it had
Wait. Okay, you look. That makes sense though.
white or light, red, green, yellow, and blue.
Because that makes sense though, because of course we black and white, obviously. Red, green, yellow, red, green, blue, I'm sorry, RGB also makes sense, right? You can create any... Wait, was it yellow or green? I keep forgetting, but there are two systems. One where you use yellow, the other where you use green, and you can create any color with these. Like, that makes sense, right? But why is it always those across all cultures? That's kind of interesting.
If it had 4 terms, they were for black, white, red, and then either green or yellow.
But why not blue? Additive and subtractive, yes, thank you. RGB and CMYK. CMYK is slightly different though, no? Like cyan, magenta, well, yellow, and black. Cyan and magenta are not the same as what we think about when we think about red and blue, right? But, okay, white, black, red, yellow, but why not blue? Why red and yellow? If anything, I would... I guess because the sun is yellow? But the sea is blue. I don't know. I guess more people see the sun than they see the sea. I don't know. In my mind, red and yellow are closer to each other than red and blue. So if anything, I would pick red and blue. And describe yellow as, I don't know, very, very light red? I don't know, something like that. I don't know. But how would you describe blue in this system? Ancient Greeks often regarded the sky as bronze. Was the sky a different color back then?
If it had only 3, they were always for black, white, and red. It suggests...
And that too, like, yeah, he said it earlier already, right? But like, why red of all colors? And it's so interesting how consistent it is.
...that as languages develop, they create...
Blood? I guess? But I feel like you would see greenery more than you would see blood. Right? Especially like in ancient times, I mean.
color names in a certain order. First black and white, then red, then green and yellow, then blue, then others like brown, purple, pink, orange, and gray. The theory was revolutionary. They weren't the first researchers interested in the question of how we name colors.
That is super interesting. Blood and fire are two very important ancient things. I guess so, but I guess if you go by importance, probably. I just thought about, you know, what you see more. And I guess you would see greenery more than you would see blood or fire. And I guess you would see the sky even more than you would see greenery, if anything. But yeah, I guess that makes sense.
In 1958, William Gladstone, who would later become a 4-term British Prime Minister, published a book on the ancient Greek works of Homer. He was struck by the fact that there weren't many colors at all in the text, and
white, black, yellow, purple, bright red, gray, indigo, blood red. Do you need any more than these, though, to be fair? You don't talk about the sky that much, though. Yeah. What is most important to describe, probably? Do we have to describe... Yeah. True.
when there were, Homer would use the same word for, quote, colors which, according to us, are essentially different.
He used the same word for purple to describe blood, a dark cloud, a wave, and a rainbow.
A rain? Okay, wait. I was about to say, wait, blood? A dark cloud I can see, I guess. A sea wave, I guess? But blood and a rainbow, that's crazy.
And he referred to the sea as wine-looking. Gladstone didn't find any references to blue or orange at all. Some researchers took this and other ancient writings to wrongly speculate that earlier societies were colorblind. Later in the 19th century, an anthropologist named W.H.
Wait. If early societies were colorblind, does that mean that the world really was black and white at one point? Never seen purple blood? Yeah, me neither, but at least purple has some red in there, right? Green conspicuously missing from the Odyssey. That is super interesting.
were colorblind. Later in the 19th century, an anthropologist named W.H.R. Rivers went on an expedition to Papua New Guinea, where he found that some tribes only had words for red, white, and black, while others had additional words for blue and green.
An expedition to investigate the cultures on a remote group of islands in the Torres Straits between Australia and New Guinea. His brief was to investigate the mental characteristics of the islanders.
He claims that the number of color terms in a population was related to their, quote, intellectual and cultural development. And he used his findings
Okay, look, the paper is from 1900 and like 1901, the 1901th year. Like it's over 100 years old. So, you know, I guess I can see this from that point of view. But from today's perspective, this is just, come on.
related to their, quote, intellectual and cultural development. And he used his findings to claim that Papuans were less physically evolved than Europeans. Berlin and Kay didn't make those racist claims, but their color hierarchy attracted a lot of criticism. For one thing, critics pointed out that the study used a small sample size, 20 people, all of whom were bilingual English speakers, not monolingual native speakers. And
Yes, but being a bilingual English speaker shouldn't mean anything, right? Like, I'm trilingual, I guess, technically, but I can speak on Russian and German to a certain degree, just like these 20 people could also speak about their languages to a certain degree, right? But the small sample size is a thing, yeah. But I mean, no. Asking more people is always good, and I'm happy that they apparently probably did it.
almost all of the languages were from industrialized societies, hardly the best portrait of the entire world.
That's a good point, though. Educational level, what? Like, I can still say that Gullo Boy, by the way, also that doesn't only mean light blue in Russian, but also gay. But like, I can agree, I can confirm that is also its own word in Russia. It's not like light blue, it's not svetlo-sini, it is Goluboy. So it's like, yeah, but like, just because I know both languages doesn't mean that I don't know the other one. Bilingual people tend to not be the least educated person. Yeah, but still, like, just because someone is bilingual doesn't mean that they don't know the everyday use of their mother tongue, right? And also just because you pick 20 languages from developed societies, which is, you know, a valid criticism. Like, you can also pick more, like, especially, for example, South America is not represented at all, even though they all speak Spanish. But it's still 20 different languages from very different areas of the world. So while it is good and useful to ask more people from more different countries, that doesn't mean that these 20 countries are not already an okay measure for a first little study, I guess. Provided they were chosen at random rather than cherry-picked. Well, yes. Like, the way I would probably assume is that these were chosen at random. They are from developed countries, so it would probably be easier to find, like, bilingual people there, so you could actually ask them. That's how I imagine it looked. If those were all cherry-picked, damn, you picked some interestingly different ones. 20 people in 20 languages, that 1 people per language sample size are way too small. Yeah, that's exactly what this is about. That sample size is too small, yes. But I'm not talking about that right now. And also, again, with that is what I said just like a few minutes ago. It's like, yes, the sample size is small, but that doesn't mean that one person doesn't know their own language. Like, yes, of course it's useful to ask more people about the language, about how they perceive the language. But again, as like a first little study, I don't think it was horrible, but I'm also glad that it was expanded upon.
Societies, hardly the best portrait of the entire world. But it also had to do with defining what a basic color term is. In the Yele language in Papua New Guinea, for example, there are only basic color terms for black, white, and red. But there's a broad vocabulary of everyday objects like the sky, ashes, and tree sap that are used as color comparisons that cover almost all English color words. There are also languages like Hanuno'o from the Philippines, where a word can communicate both color and a physical feeling. They have 4 basic terms to describe color, but they're on a spectrum of light versus dark, strength versus weakness, and wetness versus dryness.
Okay, so for example, what is blue? Blue is probably wet, right? Water. What is green? Green is dry? Brown? Brown is probably very dry. What is fresh? Is orange fresh? Probably, right? You know what? I can get behind this. If it's green, it's fresh. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was thinking about dry and wet, but no, it's actually dry and fresh. Yeah, true. Yeah, no, you know what? Thinking about it, it makes sense.
Those kinds of languages don't fit neatly into a color chip identification test.
Yeah, that's also actually what... Wait.
Don't fit neatly into a color chip identification test.
True! You're looking at it from a very, I guess, Western perspective, where English and, you know, most other Western languages have set words, like basic color words, but not all languages do. That's actually true. Indo-European perspective, thank you. But yeah, not all languages do, so does this study make sense at all? Like, it's interesting to think about it, it's interesting to look at it. But as a study on how colors are... I don't know what I'm saying.
But by the late 1970s, Berlin and Kay had a response for the critics. They called it the World Color Survey. They conducted the same labeling test on over 2,600 native speakers of 110 unwritten languages from non-industrialized societies. They found that with some tweaks, the color hierarchy still checked out. 83% of the languages fit into the hierarchy. And when they averaged the center point of where each speaker labeled each of their language's colors, they wound up with a sort of heat map. Those clusters matched pretty closely to the English speakers' averages, which are labeled here. Here's how Paul Kay puts it.
It just turns out that most languages make cuts in the same place. Some languages make fewer cuts than others.
So these color stages are widespread throughout the world. But why? Why would a word for red come before a word for blue? Some have speculated that the stages correspond to the salience of the color in the natural environment. Red is in blood and in dirt.
Blue, on the other hand, was fairly scarce before manufacturing.
Recently, cognitive science researchers have explored this question by running computer simulations of how language evolves through conversations between people. The simulations presented artificial agents with multiple colors at a time, and through a series of simple negotiations, those agents developed shared labels for the different colors. And the order in which those labels emerged? First, reddish tones, then green and yellow, then blue, then orange. It matched the original stages pretty closely. And it suggests that there's something about the colors themselves that leads to this hierarchy. Red is fundamentally more distinct than the other colors.
I guess.
So what does all this mean? Why does it matter? Well, it tells us that despite our many differences across cultures and societies, there is something universal about how humans try to make sense of the world.
Damn, it's almost like we're one race and, or one, I guess, species, and species tend to have similarities between each other. It's almost like humans are much more similar than they always like to think. It's almost like... I'm not gonna say the nihilistic thing. No. But this is super interesting. I love this kind of stuff. I also love studies in general like this that are pretty inconsequential almost. Like this, if anything, it just proves that humans are more alike than they like to think. Humans all like to think, yeah, we're so different, we're so individual, we're better than you. Group A is better than Group B simply because I am in Group A, obviously, you know? Or Group B is bad because I'm in Group A and Group B is better at this one thing and I'm jealous. You know? But by and large, humans are more similar than they like to think to each other. And I love these kinds of studies that, you know, all this proved is that humans are more alike than they like to think, which is something I already knew. But it's just an interesting study. It doesn't really say a lot, I feel like. But it's just interesting. And I love this kind of stuff. Like, yes, it says how different societies view colors. Yes, obviously. But, like, what can you do with that information? What use is that information right now to your everyday life? Not a lot, right? But it's just interesting. For example, one of the Australian Aboriginal languages has no terms for forward, backward, left, right. They only use north, south, east, west. What if they don't have a compass at hand? Do they just use... I guess it just also depends on context, right? So, like, in context, it probably makes sense to say, for example, north for forward. Quantifying difference is a bit tricky. Like, we share over 90% of our DNA with all other mammals, and we share over 50% of our DNA with a banana. I just mean in terms of, like, how we think and how we behave. Like, people like to think that they're so individual. Oh my god, I'm the only one who has this experience. No, you aren't. No, you're far from the only one. How often does it happen to you, especially if you're younger, how often does it happen to you that you see a meme on the internet and you're like, wait, what? This also happens to other people? Other people are also like this? Yeah, probably pretty often. Because people like to think, yeah, I'm so different, nobody understands me, I'm so... You would never understand. Like, I'm so complicated. Like, picking me apart would take ages. I'm so different. No, you aren't. I'm sorry to break it to you, but no, you aren't. And this is just one more, like, little thing that isn't very, again, not very consequential, but just proves yet again that people, by and large, are pretty similar to each other. And, like, this thinking of, you know, we are better than them, or we are worse than them, and that's why we hate them, because we're jealous, it's just pointless. It's just stupid. Why not just work together? Like, seriously, why not just work together to have a bigger goal? Imagine if we could put all the strengths of the different people together. You know, I am better than my neighbor because I am not as loud as them. Or my family is better than this other family because we actually know how to raise children and their child is trash. My child goes to a better school than their child. That's why they are worse parents and their family is more dysfunctional. Or my city is better than this, or no, my district is better than this other district because there is a higher criminality rate in that district. Or my city is better than this other city because my city is bigger, we have more people, we are more developed. My country is better than this other country. You know, you can pick any kind of group. My planet is better than the attacking alien race, or the alien race that just landed on Earth. The human race, or the human species, is better than this alien species because blah blah blah. It's always us against them with humans, or a lot of the time at least. And I hate that. Why can't we just work together for once? I hate evolution. Why do we have this ingrained sense of, oh my god, this person could be dangerous, better watch out, better protect my people? Why? People of that tribe are just very good at knowing which way they're facing. Really? Like, they actually use north, like, the actual, like, yeah, northeast, southwest, and they actually know? Huh. They will talk about their east and west feet, then turn around and talk about their west and east feet. That is super interesting. But honestly, if you know the directions, that makes things much easier though, right? Like, some people have a weakness with left and right. Having an east and west, or north, south, whatever system would completely eliminate that, right? That is interesting. I love a resident of Belgium claiming that some countries being better than others is subjective. I know, right? I know it's so obvious that Belgium is better than England, but you didn't have to say it like this. But this was an interesting video. Again, I love these kinds of studies. These kinds of pretty inconsequential, but just like interesting studies that share a lot about humans, in a way.